All right, everyone, welcome back once again to this Beefcast presentation. I'm your casting host, Beef. Joining me today is Jamil, aka Zurtoss. You ready for this ZVP matchup?
I am. In the top right, we have our Cyan Zerg, Arturoth.
Yeah, Arturoth. You may recall we did cast a few of his games earlier, now down in Losers Round 5, after being knocked down by, as you had mentioned, a Protoss named Triface. We'll see if he's able to make a comeback here against his Protoss opponent in the bottom left-hand corner, the red Protoss. He is Pyrokami. So like I said, in Losers Round 5 now of this IVD YogiTime.com tournament, number 27, Gold and Silver ranked tournament. This is a pretty good tournament so far. I've enjoyed the matches. We've had a lot of Zergs. And a lot of Zergs having success here. So I'd love to see these players go ahead and move on. Maybe face a Terran opponent. We haven't had a Terran in a little while. How do you think these guys would face against a Terran?
I think Azeroth would probably do pretty well. Arturoth would probably do pretty well from what I've seen. He seems to have very good control of his units. He doesn't ignore his economy. He seems to get the third up and even the fourth when he needs to. So I think he has all the right components to be able to face Terran. Certainly.
We did see his games against Yuffie, I believe, our random player that was playing Zerg on Tal'Darim Malter in Winners Round 2, that he did have exceptional macro, like you had mentioned, and even some very good decision-making. Knowing when to retreat his army, knowing when to press on, and even having that very rare characteristic of knowing when to press his advantage, knowing that he didn't have the army to safely take the game. Just go ahead and back up for a couple minutes. Other things that you need to have against a Terran opponent and a Protoss opponent, especially one that has gone Forge Fast Expand. Somebody that's very easily able to turtle on two bases and get up to a very strong army. It's very simple sometimes to just be like, okay, I've got a ton of roaches and lings. I'm going to just bust down your front door. But it is so hard to attack into some of these chokes, especially here on Cloud Kingdom, but so many ramps and chokes. You really have to have the proper composition. You really have to have the proper engagement. And I'm excited to see these two players go ahead and clash here.
That is correct. And now we do see a Forge Fast Expand out of Pyrokami. Meanwhile, it looks like our Zerg has gone for a very quick natural expansion, which is not unorthodox at all. That's very normal for Zerg to get their natural that quickly. It looks also like we have our Queen just about to pop out for Arturoth.
Yeah, the one thing that I would like to note, though, is that he has gone ahead and gone with a very early gas. I believe this is something that we've seen a couple times today. Last time we did see it on Antigua Shipyard, where we saw a very early gas against a Protoss opponent, where he ended up going with a lot of roaches and banking a ton of gas. So we'll see if Arturoth goes ahead and does something similar, or if he's going to be able to actually make use of this gas, make maybe some early Zergling speed, or maybe early roach aggression off of just two bases.
It looks like we do have some cannons going down for our Protoss player. That's going to help him defend his natural. It looks like I believe he does have a small space there for Zealot to block in. It's kind of hard to tell with the building layout.
Yeah, he's got one area there for a Zealot to block. So he won't be able to fit an Archon through there, but everything else should be just fine. And it is worth noting, like you said, he got two cannons there. That's not standard for Protoss. Our red Protoss Pyrokami is feeling a little bit more defensive than average. So throwing down that extra cannon, that's something that's going to set him behind just a little bit economically, but he will be able to stay safe against roughly twice as much stuff if Zerg was to go ahead and get in there. But this is something really cool. Right now we do see a very early layer coming out of our Zerg player. He started that at about 5 minutes. So that is an extremely early layer, working off of only one gas right now, so not looking like he's going to go straight into something like Mutas or Infestors, but with that Roach Warren down, I'm very much suspecting this could be a speed Roach timing.
Agreed. With that Roach Warren finishing, just after the layer goes up, he'll be able to do that speed upgrade immediately.
And we do see back at home for Pyrokami, going to go ahead and pump some Chrono Boost into his Cybernetics core. Wants to get that Warp Gate out as fast as possible, working off of one gateway currently. 2 more gateways going to be going down wants to stay safe for the time being, and only working off of 2 gases right now at the 7-minute mark. This is something that you typically see with a gateway timing, something like a 6 gate, but the Robo is going to be coming down, so I'd expect at least 1 more gas to come down here in the next 30 seconds or so to be able to support the sentries and the immortals that he's going to be getting with this build, unless he could just be going for a Warp Prism 6 gate attack. That is something that is very possible.
And the third going down right now for Arturoth. Does the Protoss see it? He has a probe going that way, and yes, he does see the third going down.
Yeah, he wanted to be able to drop a pylon there, but unfortunately the base was already down, so that's not going to happen. But with that third, our Zerg player is going to be able to buff up his economy quite a bit. And with Roach speed out, there's actually he's going to be pretty safe against most timing attacks. If we take a look at the worker count, 44 drones right now to 37 probes. Low eco for both of our players right now. Going up to a total of 4 gases is Pyrokami. And with that Robo facility, going to go ahead and start pumping out units. 1 observer on the way, in addition to an immortal following that up right away. And going up to 4 gates for the time being.
That's right, and we can also see the weapons upgrade going down on the Forge. It is going to help quite a bit in those engagements when the Zealots can take out the Zerglings quite a bit quicker with that upgrade.
A large swarm of speedlings are going to be moving out across the map right here. Want to take a little bit of map control, but there's an invisible observer flying their way across the map. I do see 4 overlords going to be making their way out onto the map right now. And, okay, they're turning around. They don't want to mess around with that anymore. And an Overseer, even going to be morphed. Very smart here by Arturoth. Does not want to get ambushed by anything like DTs. Might even want to be able to spot that Observer. Just stick the Overseer on the Observer. Anytime that it flies over a Queen, he could have some issue. Back over on the other side of the map, though, the Zerg and the Protoss army is going to be able to engage here a little bit. Zergling's going to be able to clean up quite a few units with Roaches going to be getting in there. They actually managed to clean up every single one of the units right there, including a couple of sentries. Very expensive units that you do not want to lose early on, and even the last Zealot is going to fall right there. An Immortal and 4 Stalkers will be able to hold this from taking any additional pressure, but that was a loss that the Protoss really could not afford.
Right, and it's one he probably could have avoided if his shield had been better placed. Where he put the force field, rather, it actually hurt the positioning of his units more than it did the Zerg units.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. Those are the kind of things that you just really want to avoid as a Protoss. You know, force fields are the lifeblood of the gateway-based army, but one wrong force field, like you said, you block off a ramp that is on the wrong side of your units, and you could get yourself killed. If you force yourself in with Zerglings, that is a bad time.
And the melee upgrade and armor upgrade for Zerg are just finishing now. We'll see if he uses that to any advantage to push in within the next few moments.
Yeah, it's worth noting, like you said, the melee armor, or the melee upgrades are the choice here for Arturoth. So this indicates that he's not wanting to end this game on Roach Tech, not going to want to go too much into Hydras, but he is in fact looking at something like Broodlords or maybe even Ultralists, something that's going to make use of those melee attacks or even Zerglings. But with the Thermal Lance upgrade started back at home for the Robotics Bay, Colossi will start being added into this composition very shortly. The first one actually already about halfway done. Colossi going to be very, very effective at dealing with a Zergling Roach-based army as long as the Protoss is able to get favorable engagements. But with the Spire already completed, Corruptors are starting to make their way onto the field right now as the Zerg somehow is able to sense that there is, in fact, a Colossi switch coming.
Right, and interesting, he is getting the Corruptors, which is exactly what you want to do to handle that Colossus, but you need to make sure those Corruptors don't fall to a heavy Stalker army, so you need them mixed in, and you certainly don't want them picked off, just so that you can get at those Colossus.
Yeah, our Zerg player right now working off of a total of 3 bases, but his economy is still very low, only at 50 drones. That's a kind of drone count that you would normally see off of 2 base, or even at 8-9 minutes into the game. Right now, working off that low economy, he's really not taking advantage of that 3rd base the way that he should, although his 5th and 6th gases are going to be coming up here as the Infestation Pit is already done, but I didn't see pathogen glands start getting upgraded yet. That has not, in fact, been upgraded. So no Infestor is going to be added into this army for the time being, but Hive already about 3/4 of the way done. So, Broodlords could be a very real possibility rather soon.
Right, Broodlords could come out, or with that Hive Tech, since he's been getting melee upgrades, perhaps he's planning on going once again for the Cracklings. We've seen him do that before. Just not sure here if that's the best mix with the Colossus in the Protoss army.
Yeah, Colossus will absolutely shred those Zerglings with the upgrades that they're at. Currently 1-1 Colossi. Actually going to be against a little bit better upgraded Lings. The Lings are going to be 1-2 here in just about 5 seconds, and that does finish up right there. So, yeah, and the Colossi are a little bit under upgraded compared with the Zerg, something you don't see too often. But those Zerglings still just going to get absolutely melted by Colossi, and both players looking like they might want to move out onto the map right now. There are a total of 7 Corruptors in this ball for the time being, and the Zerg player with about a 60 supply advantage, and not that much of that is in probes. If we take a look right here, Control A, there we go. Army supply is 129 for Zerg, 74 for our Protoss. And Protoss has a little bit better tech with those Colossi out, and the charge lots are going to be rather effective at dealing with those Zerglings and even the Roaches to an extent.
Meanwhile, Pyrokami's third is almost done. This is not something that Arturoth doesn't know about. He has an Overlord sitting over that mineral line. It's been there for quite a while, and Pyrokami just hasn't noticed it.
Yeah. And right now, well, he might have noticed it. He might just not care. At this point, he knows his opponent is going to be rather close to maxed. The Observer did spy most of the army when it kind of waddled around there at the third. And Infestors being produced right here, a total of 6 Infestors for the time being. 7 Infestors actually are going to be making their way out, but they do not have the Pathogen Gland upgrade. So starting at 50 energy, and there are actually charge lots making their way into the third up here, but the Zerg player going to go ahead and say, screw it, I'm moving on out right now. Corruptors and Zerglings going to be making their way as the Vanguard up here, as the Colossi do start to make headway with the Zerglings and the Roaches. Corruptors going to be making their way in there, but some nice force fields going to segment off a large part of that army, and the only thing that was lost by the Protoss player was about 3 cannons and 3 pylons. Corruptor's going to start to whittle away at these Colossi now as the first Colossus does fall, and every Colossus does fall right there. Immortal's going to be pounding away at the Roaches, and there's actually not enough Zerg to deal with the rest of the Protoss army right here as the charge lots do come in, and the Protoss is actually going to be able to drive this back, picking off quite a few of the very expensive Infestors, and the Zerg was not able to pressure down this third base. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, those charge lots that made their way into the third of the Zerg cleaned up every single one of the drones and the hatchery. So right now, Arturoth actually in very dire straits.
Right, this doesn't look, that engagement didn't look as good as it might have. I think one thing that Zerg players often neglect is when you take those Corruptors in to go against Colossus, you might as well use the Corruption ability. It helps you take down the Colossus quicker, and then you could put Corruption on the Immortals or some of the Stalkers, and that helps your army quite a bit more than you might expect.
I could certainly agree with you. An additional 20% damage taken by anything with that corruption applied onto it. And that's an ability that, like you said, is very underused. 45-second cooldown on that. But if you've got 8 corruptors out there, that's enough to cover every single one of those Colossi, every single one of those Immortals. More Roaches and Infestors going to be making their way in there right now. And there are no Colossi in this mix for the time being. About 3 Archons are going to be up there in addition to 2 Immortals. 2 more Immortals going to be coming over. But the majority of the army is going to be in Roaches. So these Immortals are going to be very effective. The Archons and Immortals taking so much damage from these Roaches right here, but it looks like there might just be enough Zerg to go ahead and batter this down. The last of the Immortals are going to be falling very soon here, and I think our Protoss player might be in a little bit worse shape than he had intended, as the last army units do get going ahead and cleaned up. A photon cannon from the high ground is going to be firing down, but these probes are not the best combat units as they are cleaned up by every single one of these Roaches, and the Nexus is going to be taken down, sending our Protoss player back to 2 bases, working off of only 2 Immortals and 2 Archons back at home. The Corruptor count going to go ahead and continue to increase as the Greater Spire does complete. The Zerg player going to go ahead and triple expand after losing his 3rd base right there. Not even opting to go ahead and remax on his economy. He looks like he just wants to kill his opponent.
Right, and with that Greater Spire completed, will we see these Corruptors turn into Broodlords Broodlords, or is he just going to push as is? No, it looks like he's just going to pull right back out to the Watchtowers.
Yeah, going to go ahead and clean up the proxy pylon that did actually kill his third with those few warp ins earlier, but with the amount of money that he has saved up and the open supply, he could very easily turn all 8 of these Corruptors into Broodlords, and that would be an army that our Protoss player would be very hard-pressed to defend against.
Right, he just does not have the composition needed in order to tackle those Broodlords, and they can be very deadly. The moment they spawn those Broodlings, your units will start attacking those quite often, instead of the units you really want to focus down.
Yeah, and the Zealots, actually not the best composition to fight. Like you said, there's just not the correct composition to deal with those Broodlords, and the 8 Broodlords do get morphed in right there. Unfortunately, he's not going to have any Corruptors now. Corruptors are something that you want to have in your composition right here, just because with everything else on the map, the Stalkers are not going to be focused firing down your Corruptors, and Corruptors will be able to completely destroy any Colossi that are on the field. And right now there's actually going to be only 1 Colossus, actually 0 Colossus on the field, and those Archons are going to be the only splash damage for the time being. Broodlord's getting into position right now as the charge lots do make their way in, but Roaches and Zerglings and Broodlords, oh my, as they just clash with the Protoss army right here, but the Protoss is just going to get completely decimated out in the open. The Broodlords raining down hell, and GG comes out of Pyrokami. Arturoth on a roll manages to take out this Protoss opponent, saying the other one was a fluke, and we are out of here.
Very good show by Arturoth, showing us that he has what it takes to take it in late game. I think those Broodlords were kind of the icing on the cake. He just showed us that he has what it takes.
Yep, very good game coming out of both of these players right there. I've been your casting host, Beef. It's been a Beefcast presentation in association with IVDYogiTime.com, putting on the IVD tournament number 27 here, a gold and silver tournament, but we have tournaments for all skill groups. Be sure to tune on in for some more matches out of this tournament, as well as a couple more later this week. Joining me has been Jamil, a.k.a. Zurtoss. Any final words?
No, I'd like to ask our viewers to please support us by clicking on some of our ads, just to help us keep these prize pools going.
Very wise words. We will catch you in our next game. Thanks for watching.